Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 23rd part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 23, Eri. You want me to hire me? Inko asked, sounding surprised. Indeed I do, Nizu said, having walked in on the family a few moments ago on Eraserhead's shoulder. UA just took on a new ward and we require someone to look after her. I believe you're familiar with the girl. Her name is Eri. She has quite a powerful quirk, but no control over it. She also has a few abilities that may seem unnatural. You may recall that she said that she knew your name. Inko nodded. Yes, she called me by name when she asked me to protect her, she said, her husband standing nearby with Durandal by his side, whilst Izumi sat on the bed with her. Well, we found out how she was able to find that out. She's a telepath who can also read minds and use telekinesis. Nizu said. Quite the interesting set of abilities she has. What? Izumi blurted out, getting out her notebook. So her quirk allows her to not only make people younger, but also read other people's minds, communicate to them with telepathy, and move objects around with telekinesis. I'm calling it now. She's a product of some seriously fucked quirk eugenics program, Durandal said, sounding angry. You would think that, but there are things about her that are anomalies, Nizu said. Whilst her rewind ability is a quirk, her telepathy, mind reading, and telekinesis aren't. They aren't even connected to her quirk. They are a separate thing entirely, he said. Noting the shock on the family's faces, I had Eraserhead here erase her quirk, but even with erasure active, her telepathy and telekinesis persisted. They weren't even affected in the slightest. Izumi's jaw hit the floor. Telepathy and telekinesis without it being a quirk. What kind of sci-fi bullshit was this? How can someone have power without it being a quirk? That was just impossible. One of the few people with a telepath-like quirk she knew of was Mandalay of the Wild Pussycats, and that was only one-way telepathy. Eri, on the other hand, sounded like hers was two-way, with the added benefit of reading minds as well. Telekinesis-like quirks were a bit more common. Her mother, for instance, had a minor telekinesis quirk that could only pull small objects towards her. But Eri's sounded stronger. Wait, Hisashi said, sounding confused. Are you telling us that this girl, Eri, has powers that aren't quirks? I am, Nizu said with a nod, which is why she needs to be protected. Before she was rescued and brought here, she was being held by a Yakuza group called the Shai Hasekai, who experimented on her. They will no doubt make an attempt to get her back, so we're taking her to UA for her safety. But, we don't have anyone on staff who can spare the time to look after a ward. Shai Hasekai? Now, why did that name sound familiar? Wait, she remembered seeing that word on a document at the Night Eye Agency. Wait, Shai Hasekai? Izumi said, isn't that an organization Sir Night Eye is investigating? She asked, which worried her greatly. Because if Sir Night Eye is investigating someone, then they are very dangerous. Inko's face went pale. I attacked a member of a Yakuza group, she squeaked, horrified that she just put a massive target on not only herself but her family's backs. Sadly, yes. The man who you threatened worked for a man called Kaichisaki, also known as Overhaul. He is a dangerous man, which is why I am making you this offer. Nizu said. You all need protecting now, and we're better to do that than UA. You do remember that UA was attacked by villains a few weeks ago, Durandal said. Oh, I know, Nizu said. And we've upped our security since then. Only a suicidal fool would dare attack UA now. You will be quite safe at UA now. So, what do you say? Inko closed her eyes as she thought about Nizu's offer. Yes, she was thinking about getting a job earlier, before the thing with that Yakuza goon, but this seems a bit too much to be true. A job at UA was something she hadn't even thought of. But, after threatening to castrate a Yakuza goon, probably a high-ranking one considering how valuable Eri was to the group, she needed to ensure her daughter's safety. If this entire situation was so obviously unexpected, she would have thought it was part of the rat's plan. All right. I'll look after her, Inko said, opening her eyes. It's been a while since I last looked after a young child, but I should be able to take care of Eri. She looks like she needs someone to care for her. Good, Nizu said. We can take you to her if you like. But do be warned, we have no idea just how powerful her telepathy is or how much she could hear. So be aware that she may find out things about you all that you would prefer to keep secret. If you're worried about her blurting out one for all or that I was made by Paxton, don't worry, Durandal said. We've already informed him about those little details. Izumi nodded with a slight frown. It pained her that she had to withhold that information from her own father for so long, but they couldn't risk telling them over an open channel. He had taken it well, even understood why they could only tell him in person. But it still felt wrong to hide something like this from him for so long. Even Inko felt bad about it. Shockingly, he took the situation with Durandal, who his creator was, as well as the existence of a quirk emulator well. Hell, his response to finding out was, "Oh, well, I was wondering when someone was going to try and make something like that," as well as showing relief that Paxton was dead and couldn't perfect the emulator. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot I want to know about all this, Hisashi added, but now really isn't the time or place to go into that sort of thing. We can talk about it more later. Are you sure you're okay with this? Izumi asked with a frown. Positive, Hisashi replied with a smile. But, I lied about my quirk, Izumi said, tears forming around her eyes. Hey, it's alright, Hisashi said with a smile as he hugged his daughter. I honestly don't care where your quirk came from. All I care about is that you're happy and attending your dream school. You worked hard to get to where you are now, and nothing, not even the fact that your quirk was given to you by All Might, will change how proud I am of you. Izumi beamed as she returned her father's hug. Despite being lied to, he still loved them. He understood why they had to hide this from him. Anyone could be listening in on those calls they've been making. Izumi smiled before she broke off the hug. Alright then, let's go meet Eri. The group made their way out of Inko's hospital room and made their way towards Eri's room. But, as they were leaving, Shota patted Durandal on the head, with a bare hand. Izumi noticed it as well. Shota had just allowed Durandal to copy his quirk. Now, why did he do that? She decided to ask later, as they didn't go far before they reached the room Eri was in. The moment they entered the room, Eri seemed to light up. Inko. She said, her mouth not moving, but the words were still heard by all those in the room. Wait, what the? Durandal gasped, looking around. I heard that. All eyes turned towards Durandal. You heard her? Izumi asked, sounding surprised. She heard it too, but she didn't expect Durandal to hear it as well. Yes I did, Durandal replied. That shouldn't be possible. Durandal, Eri said. His voices are strange, they're monotone. Everyone took a few seconds to process what Eri just said. She could not only speak telepathically to Durandal, but also read his thoughts. Which shouldn't be possible since he's a robot. Yes, he has a positronic brain, but it's still mechanical. Telepathy shouldn't work on him. How is that possible? Durandal said, sounding shocked. I'm a machine, mental quirks aren't supposed to work on me. I have no brain to read. Yes, but Eri's telepathy isn't a quirk, now is it? Nisa said with a smile. This is quite interesting, telepathy that works on machines as well. She's a technopath as well. Truly remarkable. Eri, meanwhile, was still sitting in her bed, with a confused look on her face. Did I do something wrong? I'm sorry. Nisa smiled. No need to be sorry about anything, Eri. We were just discussing something about your abilities. Hello, again Eri, Inko said with a smile. Do you remember me? Yes, you're Inko, Eri said, and he's Hisashi, your husband. And Izumi, your daughter. You weren't hurt by my curse, weren't you? Curse? Izumi said, looking confused. Yes, my curse, Eri said, curling up into a ball. I make things disappear. When my curse first appeared, I made my father disappear. My mother gave me to Kai after that. Eri, you aren't cursed, Izumi said. No, quirk is a curse. What happened to your father was an accident, nothing more. Accidents like that happen all the time. Take my father for instance. When his quirk first manifested, he set fire to his living room. I'm never going to live that down, Hisashi said with a smile. Maybe you shouldn't have told us about it then, Inko said with a smile before turning to Eri. Eri, what happened to your father was tragic, but it wasn't your fault, and I will not blame you for it. Your quirk isn't a curse. It is a powerful gift, alongside your other abilities, she said with a motherly smile. You don't think I'm cursed, Eri said, a slight smile on her face. Ah, I see I was right in picking you to look after her, Nizu said with a smile. Shota nodded. I would look after her myself since my quirk can come in handy if she ever loses control, but she needs someone motherly to look after her at the moment. That, and I can't be around her all the time. Wait, that's why you gave Durandal erasure. So he can erase her quirk, Izumi said, realizing why he gave Durandal his quirk. Exactly, Shota said I can't be around her all the time, and due to being the homeroom teacher for 1B, I can't stay at your dorm. But Durandal can. If Eri's quirk starts acting up, erase it. Okay. You can use erasure? Durandal nodded. Yeah, erasure's coming through fine. Good, Shota said, just don't use it on anyone else without permission, okay? Only use it on Eri if you have to. Don't worry, sir. Izumi said nervously, we won't use it unless we need to. She said, still not exactly comfortable around Shota. I'm kind of worried about Eri, Inko said looking concerned. Why isn't she talking with her mouth? It's because Kai took my vocal cords away, Eri replied, tears falling from her eyes. He did it to stop me from crying, as it was distracting him. Nizu frowned. He sadly already knew of that grisly little detail, but to hear it come from the girl herself just hit harder. The shocked looks from the Midoriyas only made it worse. But, there was sadly more to it. We believe that Kai's quirk allows him to disassemble and reassemble matter, and has done so to Eri countless times. We believe this is how he was able to remove her vocal cords. Izumi covered her mouth and nose with her hands as tears fell from her eyes. Oh gods, I am so sorry, she cried. How could someone do something so cruel to a young girl, just for crying? So, we're gutting this bastard, right? Hisashi asked with a scowl. Eri may not be his daughter, but she was still a young girl, and she reminded him too much of Izumi. This Kai guy was going to pay, big time. Get in line, Hisashi Inko interjected, a look of primal rage on her face. If I see him, I'll rip his vocal cords out. Nizu smiled. Ah, the parental instincts to protect their young. Such a violent instinct. I'm afraid you may need to wait in line yourself, Inko Shota interjected. Every teacher at UA has already stacked a claim to beating Kai into the ground. Believe me, if word of this got out around campus, we believe the entire school will prepare to go to war to protect this girl. Izumi smiled slightly, glad to hear that they weren't the only ones willing to go plus ultra to protect Eri. Well, looks like this Kai guy is going to have a very bad time, Durandal said. If he had a mouth, he would have been smiling. I should probably have Megalovania on standby. So, is Inko going to be looking after me? Eri asked, not quite sure what was going on. Nizu nodded. Yes, she is. We will be leaving for UA later, he said, and don't worry about Kaizone. He will be coming to UA as well, but he won't be returning with us or staying with you. His situation is sadly different from yours. But you will be able to see him again. Eri nodded. Okay then. So, does that make Izumi my big sister then? She asked with an innocent look on her face. No one had the heart to tell her no. Especially Izumi. She always wanted a little sister. Meanwhile, elsewhere in town, a call was being made. What do you mean, she escaped? Kai fumed, pissed off that Eri was allowed to escape. Midoriya sighed, having just informed his boss of what happened. Eri and Stain ran into a woman with a telekinesis quirk, who threatened to rip my testicles off. What did you think I was going to do, persist and let her rip my nads off? Come on, I may not have blood in my body, but that will still hurt. I've already had them pulled off once before by the underground hero Jade, and that fucking hurt. Besides, I followed them from the shadows, so I still know where they are. Kai sighed. Midoriya did have a point, even if it pissed him off by how right he was. Having your balls ripped off was indeed a painful experience, one he would wish upon all of his enemies. Sadly, whilst he could easily recover and keep going after such an injury, his subordinates could not. Any idea where they are now? Kai asked, sounding annoyed. Newfound General Hospital, Midoriya replied, looking over the hospital from his vantage point, but I did see Nizu walk in there, so there may be. Wait. Nizu's leaving, he said as he watched Nizu leave, standing on the shoulder of another hero. With him was another hero, that woman who tried to rip his nuts off, a man with messy red hair, a young girl with even more messy green hair who was wearing a UA school uniform, a robot wolf and shit. Nizu's leaving with Eri. What? Kai snapped, damn it. That bloody plague rat is taking her to UA. We won't be able to get her out of there if they take her there. Is there any chance you can get her out? Sorry boss, no can do, Midoriya replied. He's got 2 pro heroes with him, and there are still several other pros outside after the villain attack from earlier, not to mention the bitch who threatened to rip my nuts off. I'm sorry boss, but unless we get a sudden massive villain attack there is no way dash. Why the fuck does Nizu have a bloody assault hound? He's Nizu, why wouldn't he? Kai said with a sigh. UA's budget was annoyingly best described as yes. It's why he struggled to get any influence in Mizudafu. Nizu had his bloody plague-ridden paws all over that city. And now he had Eri keep an eye on UA. With any luck, they'll allow her to leave at some point. And when they do, get her, and kill everyone with her. Yes sir, Midoriya said, smiling behind his mask. He would obey his master's orders to the letter, and get Eri back. Meanwhile, somewhere in Tokyo, another phone was ringing. And was left ringing long enough for the call to go to voicemail. Hey, Mirai. Izumi here. I don't know when you'll get this, but we found someone who may be able to help you with one of your investigations, Izumi said over the phone, her message being recorded. Her name is Eri, and she was rescued from a group called the Shy Hasaikai. I think I remember seeing their name on a file of yours. She's been through a lot and might be able to help your investigation into them. Call me back when you can. Sadly, Mirai Sasaki did not hear that message, nor was he able to call her back, as he lay unconscious in a side alley of some old abandoned street. Blood dripped out of his head. A gloved hand carefully picked up the phone. The Shy Hasaikai, the man said, dressed in a lab coat and a gas mask with short brown hair. He looked at the phone before he threw it away. It was a hero phone, so it would have a tracking implant in it. I'll keep that in mind, he said before he turned towards the 2 other men he was with. One dressed like a WW1 aviator, the other, dressed like a warship captain with an almost comically large mustache. Aviator, captain, grab him and take him with us. Christmas just came early. Kyudai and I are going to make one hell of a Nomu out of this guy. The 2 men nodded before they picked up Mirai's unconscious body just as one of Kurogiri's warp gates appeared. The 3 of them quickly rushed through the gate with their unconscious cargo in hand. It would be days before anyone found the phone that had been left behind, with no trace of the man who owned it. Later that day, the convoy that took Izumi and her family back to UA, seriously, why did Nizu have an assault hound? Arrived back at the school. The first thing they did was head off towards the 1A dorm to inform them of what will be going on. Your mother is staying with us, was the collective response from the entire class. Even Mei seemed surprised by this sudden and new arrangement, as well as Chiharu and Nijire, who were here as well for some reason. She was surprised to see that Denki and Kyoka were here as well, since she would have thought they would be out due to Denki getting his new eye today. Looks like Recovery Girl either worked quickly or started early. Either way, it was good to see him with 2 eyes again. But, he still had that scar over his eye. Yep. Izumi said with a smile, standing just a few feet in front of the entrance with both her parents. Eri was waiting outside alongside Durandal. UA just took on a new ward and hired my mother to look after her. So she'll be staying with us from now on. And due to this arrangement, my father will be staying with us as well for the week. Achiko, please leave your questions about the moon till later, she said, looking at the gravity girl as she vibrated with excitement. Greetings, Inko said with a bow. Some of you have already met me, but for those who haven't, I am Inko Midoriya, Izumi's mother. And this is my husband, Hisashi, she said as her husband bowed as well. Hey, Miss Midoriya, Nito said, sounding confused as he, Hitoshi, Achiko, and those who had met Izumi's mother before, looked confusingly at the now much thinner and taller Inko. What happened to you? Quirks happened, Inko replied with a smile. Inko was hit by a quirk that made her younger by about 10 years. Izumi explained the quirk belonged to the girl my mother will be looking after. Her name is Eri, and for God's sake, be very careful around her. She has very little control over her quirk and has suffered from severe abuse before being rescued. So please, be nice to her, okay? She said. Also be careful of what you think around her. She's also a telepath who can read people's minds, she added, shooting a glare towards Minoru. She's also got telekinesis as well, so if things start rattling, it's probably her. Wow, that is a rather powerful quirk, Momo remarked, intrigued by how powerful Eri's quirk was. Izumi shook her head. Her telepathy and telekinesis aren't related to her quirk or our quirks in general, she said. Her quirk is rewind. Her telepathy and telekinesis are, well, not quirks and are not affected by quirk erasing tech. What? The entire class gasped, finding what they were hearing hard to believe. Telepathy and telekinesis that aren't quirks. Nito remarked, how is that even possible? You can't have powers without a quirk. We don't know, that's why she's here, Izumi replied, to look after her and to find out how she can use these abilities without them being connected to her quirk. Also Nito, I'm going to need your help with her quirk. She can't control it and has no training with it. If you can copy it, we might get a better idea of how it works and train her to use it safely. Understood, Nito said with a smile. Willing to help Eri in any way he could. Which was shared by the rest of the class. Izumi smiled before she turned towards the door. Okay, you can come in now. Durandal walked through the door moments later, with Eri sitting on his back and wearing an Izu onesie. More than half the class was visibly vibrating at the sight of Eri and how adorable she looked. But there was someone else with them, someone everyone in the 1A dorm hadn't seen for a while. Kana! Mei shouted as she and her siblings Kimoto and Teshima rushed forwards and hugged their mother, tears in their eyes. The rest of the class was in equal shock at the sight of their homeroom teacher, having not expected to see her again for a while still. And yet, here she was, back at UA. And if she was here, then that meant that Snipe was back as well. Kana smiled as her children hugged her, but she looked to have seen better days. Whilst she looked mostly fine, she also looked tired. Her right arm was also in a sling and covered in scars. She smiled as she crouched down and embraced her 3 children with her one good arm. It's okay you 3, I'm here now. I'm sorry to have to leave you for so long. It's okay, Mother, Mei said with a smile, glad to see her mother up and about again. The rest of the class remained silent so as to not interrupt them. You're back now. That's all that matters to us now. Kana smiled before she looked up at the rest of the class. Don't worry, Nizu informed me of what happened on the way back, so I know about Eri, she said. Still, I am sorry for what happened at the USJ. We should have been more prepared for an attack like that. It's okay, Sensei, Izumi said. No one could have known we were going to be attacked at the USJ. You did your best to protect us, and we're all thankful for it, she said, with the rest of the class quickly chipping in with their own positive remarks. Kana smiled. Her students just kept surprising her. Looks like Nizu was right, this year did produce some great hero students. Now it was up to her to help mold them into heroes. Thank you, all of you now, apologies for interrupting you. I'll let you get on and introduce Eri. Thank you, Izumi said before turning towards the rest of the class, Durandal by her side with Eri still on his back. 1A, this is Eri. Hello, Eri said nervously, waving her hand slightly. Several members of 1A waved back smiling, everyone finding her adorable. But more than a few were surprised by her talking without opening her mouth. She said that without moving her lips, Toru remarked. She's mute, Izumi explained. She has no vocal cords due to having them removed by someone, whose name will remain anomalies due to the entire staff of UA already prepared to declare war on the guy, she said, whilst Durandal brought up a sign with Kaichisaki written on it. As well as the word kill. The entire class looked horrified. How could this man, who they now knew was named Kaichisaki, do something so cruel to a girl as sweet as Eri? But, whilst their faces showed horror, their eyes showed rage. They were all ready to kill to protect Eri from this monster, as well as anyone else who wanted to capture her. One quick check on Izumi's phone and yes, her classmates were already planning to go to war. Even Nijire and Shiharu wanted in. And who was spearheading this war declaration? Himiko, who by now had zipped over to Eri and was now hugging her. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that, she cried. She knew far too well what it's like to have abusive parents. Her parents forced her to suppress her quirk, for crying out loud. But what happened to Eri was far, far worse. Don't worry, little one, we won't let anyone harm you again. The sentiment was shared by the entire class. Himiko, I know you feel sorry for her, but could you stop squeezing her a bit, please? Izumi said. I don't want her to feel uncomfortable, and we still don't know what triggers her quirk yet. I'm sorry. But she's just so cute. Himiko said, still hugging Eri whilst the little unicorn child just sat there with a confused look on her face. We're keeping her, right? Of course we are. She's a ward of UA and my mother's looking after her, Izumi replied. Big sister, Eri asked nervously, turning towards Izumi. Is this normal? Yes, Eri, this is normal, Izumi replied. Don't worry, I'll help you if you feel uncomfortable. Now, Himiko, please, can you back off a bit? You're making her uncomfortable. Himiko sighed. Fine, she said before she broke off the hug. Wait, did she just call you big sister? Mina asked, looking surprised. Would you say no to her? Izumi retorted. No one dared to challenge her, because she was right. Who wouldn't want Eri as their younger sister? The rest of the day went well. Izumi allowed Eri to meet the rest of the class, as well as Mei, her siblings, their teacher, Nijire and Shiharu. Everyone adored her, because who wouldn't? The girl was just pure adorableness. There were a few issues with some of the girls hugging her a bit too tightly, as well as Eri being scared of Fumikage due to his bird-like head. Thankfully Izumi was able to calm her down a bit, with some help from Dark Shadow. Apparently, she liked talking to the sentient quirk. Later they tested out her quirk by having Nito copy it. They weren't surprised that he wasn't able to copy her telepathy or telekinesis, since those weren't quirks, but her own quirk proved to be problematic as well. It was a blank, just like One for All, so he couldn't use it or help her train it. But, even though he couldn't use it, copying it gave them a lot more information about Eri's quirk. It was a stockpile quirk, yes, but it operated differently from One for All. The stockpile fills up slowly over time, but when she uses Rewind, the stockpile goes down, with her horn representing how much is in the stockpile. A bit like Fat Gum and his quirk, Fat Absorption. He could build it up and convert it into a powerful offensive attack, at the cost of his fat. Now they knew the basics of how it worked, they could work around it. The larger the horn, the more careful they had to be around her. Now all they had to do was find a way for her to vent her stockpile safely, with Durandal and or Shota Aizawa on standby. Whilst the day had gone well, it could have gone better. Eri didn't smile, not generally anyway. Whenever she did smile it seemed forced, a mask she wore to hide her pain. Izumi didn't notice it at first, but Himiko did. And once she informed Izumi about it, so too did she notice as well. It might take a while, but one day soon, she will make her smile, generally smile. But that would be a challenge for another day. As for now, they had to make her comfortable first. When it came to putting Eri to bed, Inko took her to one of the empty rooms on the girl's side and tucked her in. The room was mostly empty, with only a single bed. Eri, oddly, felt safe inside this Spartan room. There wasn't much, yes, but that's what made this room feel safe to her. It wasn't full of stuff Kai got her just to keep her distracted or forced her to play with. The emptiness reminded her that she wasn't in Kai's grasp anymore, that she was now free. Eri, a disembodied voice said, calling to her within her mind as she laid back in bed. Who's there? Eri asked, looking around in fright. There wasn't anyone in the room with her. Do not worry, I am not here to hurt you, the voice said. I am here to help you. I am close by but not physically present in your room. Who are you? Eri asked. Someone who wants to help you, but must remain anonymous for now, the voice replied. We are the same, you and I. Are you, cursed like me? Eri asked, hiding beneath her sheets. We are not cursed, Eri, the voice said. What you have is an incredible gift, but one you have little control over. Do not worry, young one, I will be here to help teach you how to control your powers. You can help me, Eri said, sounding surprised. Can you hear the voices too? If you're referring to the thoughts of those around you, then yes, I can, the voice replied, and yes, I can help you. You have the potential to become powerful, Eri, but as you are now, you are a danger, the voice said. Do not worry, young one, I will help you. Your mind can become a powerful tool, but as it is now it is undisciplined and vulnerable. Untrained you could cause great harm without meaning to. But I can help you control your powers. Your quirk I can't, but your other abilities, your telepathy and telekinesis I can. They will be your most powerful abilities, but as they are now, they are dangerous to use. Eri curled in on herself. What Kai said about her was true, she was cursed, and she was a danger to those around her. Do not worry, young one, as I said, I will teach you how to control your powers, the voice said reassuringly, causing Eri to calm down slightly. You will not need to live in fear of them anymore. Because, to quote Japan's #1 hero, I am here. Now repeat after me, but only within your own mind. My mind is my own, my will is my own, my soul is my own, I am no one's slave. Eri thought about the words she was asked to repeat, not fully understanding what they meant, but she felt that she could trust this voice. So, she repeated what she was told, but she didn't project it, only saying it within her own mind. She felt relaxed when she was saying it, and the voices around her got quieter and more organized. That's good, the voice said. Repeat the chant whenever you feel your powers are getting out of control. It should help you concentrate and regain control over them. In time you will be able to have it up 24/7, even when you sleep. But for now, use it whenever you can, especially when you feel stressed. What does the chant do? Eri asked, curious as to how this chant will help her. It's to help control your mental abilities, the voice said. It'll help your mind concentrate and prevent accidental use, plus it'll act as a shield to help protect against other mental attacks. It is the foundation on which your mental abilities will grow from. Once you have that sorted out, we can work on developing your mental abilities. Now rest, young one, rest and recuperate from your ordeal. Kai can't hurt you now. Eri nodded as she settled back into bed. Thank you, she said before she closed her eyes and gently drifted off to sleep. Thankful for the friendly voice for helping her. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 24. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.